Chapter 13. The Red Scythe's Whisper. A world of nothingness. That was the only way to describe it. An endless expanse of black stretched in all directions, swallowing sound, light, and even the idea of distance. There was no horizon to meet the eye, no sky above, no ground below, and yet, somehow, Jahel was standing. His fat, green-haired figure looked strangely small in this place. Here, the concept of up and down felt meaningless, and yet his body maintained balance without effort. What is this place? Jahel thought to himself, his voice trapped within his mind because here, even echoes didn't exist. The air, if it could be called that, felt heavy with magicules. They seeped into his skin, saturating the very space around him with an invisible density that pressed against his mind. It wasn't painful, but it was unnatural. He felt as if reality itself had been rewritten to accommodate only this emptiness. Complete darkness surrounded him, and yet, he could see. Not because there was light, but because the space itself allowed him to perceive. His vision didn't feel natural, it was like his mind had been forcibly granted awareness of what existed around him. He swallowed hard, trying to understand. There's no ground, but I'm still standing. There's no light, but I can see everything. This place, it's wrong. A flicker of irritation sparked in his chest. He hated feeling like a pawn, tossed into some strange prison without explanation. The thought of being at someone else's mercy made his teeth grind. Then, the memory came back. Before finding himself here, he had been inside Footman's body. He remembered trying to wrest control, to fully take over, and then, him. That man. Jahel's mind replayed the image, a stranger stepping in with casual confidence, radiating overwhelming power. The fight hadn't even been a fight. With a single slap, Footman had been sent crashing down, utterly defeated. Jahel had felt the shock, the helplessness, and then, nothing. Until he opened his eyes here. So this is where that man sent me. The annoyance deepened, simmering beneath his unease. To lock me up like an animal. Jahel's thoughts were interrupted by a sudden disturbance. The void shifted. It wasn't a sound, not exactly, more like the blackness itself trembled, rippling as if reality had acknowledged the arrival of something far greater. And then, he appeared. A figure emerged from the distortion with an almost unnatural stillness, like he had always been there and the space had simply chosen to reveal him now. Black hair, tied back into a neat ponytail. Golden eyes that glowed faintly, cold and sharp even in this lightless void. A black coat draped elegantly over a crisp white shirt, the contrast only making his presence more pronounced. Rimuru, but this was not the smiling, relaxed man others might know. No, the Rimuru standing before him carried a different weight. A subtle yet suffocating leak of Demon Lord Haki spilled into the space, each pulse pressing against Jahel's skin like invisible chains. It wasn't an explosion of power, no, it was worse. It was restrained and deliberate, the kind of quiet dominance that told you this was only a fraction of what he could do. And there was anger in his eyes. It wasn't loud, shouting fury, but the kind that burned cold, the kind that promised this encounter was going to be anything but merciful. The moment their eyes met, every nerve in Jahel's body screamed at him. Run, get away, hide. His muscles tensed instinctively, but in this place, there was nowhere to go. His breathing grew uneven, his hands trembled. Sweat trickled down his round face despite the space having no heat, no wind, and no air. The fear was real, but so was the stubborn frustration, the defiance at being made to feel powerless. Rimuru didn't need to say a single word, his mere existence here was an overwhelming statement. Jahel's foot shifted back on instinct, his body recoiling from the crushing aura pouring off the man in front of him. Jahel stepped back because of Rimuru's overwhelming aura. The black void seemed to tighten around them, as if the space itself feared what was about to happen. The silence wasn't mere quiet, it was suffocating, oppressive, a silence that clung to the skin like ice. Jahel's face twitched. He was irritated, not just by Rimuru's presence, but by the sheer audacity of it. This wasn't how people approached him. They bowed, they groveled, they begged for their lives before he even said a word. But this man looked at him like he was nothing. And that look, those golden eyes, bored into his soul. Are you? Rimuru's voice was calm, yet each syllable carried the weight of a hammer blow. Jahel, king of high humans? The words rang in the emptiness. Jahel opened his mouth to sneer, but the instant he met Rimuru's gaze, the mocking retort died in his throat. He didn't need to be told that lying was useless. Something primal screamed at him that this man could tear the truth straight from his very being. The irritation in his eyes faltered, replaced by the faintest flicker of fear. His pride fought it, but his body knew better. He nodded stiffly. "Good," Rimuru replied, the faintest smirk tugging at his lips. "Saves me the trouble of confirming. I've come to kill you. But," he tilted his head, mockery dripping from his voice, "if you get on your knees and lick my boots, maybe I'll let you live." It was spoken casually, as though it were nothing. But to Jahel, it was the ultimate insult. The fear inside him was instantly smothered by fury. "You dare?" His voice rose, booming in the empty space. "I am the king of high humans. The one who killed Milam's pet dragon. The one who slew Veldanava, god of this world, and his wife, Lucia. I am the perfect creation of Twilight. Do you think you can give me orders?" His magicules surged violently, shaking the void around them. The emptiness groaned under the pressure. Blood welled in his palm, churning unnaturally as if it were alive. The liquid elongated, solidifying into a massive crimson trident, its presence filling the void with a suffocating aura. Origin blood. One of the 7 Genesis-grade weapons, feared by nations, revered as an untouchable relic. Forged by Veldanava himself, said to be unbreakable. Jahel gripped it with both hands, the rage in his eyes almost hiding his unease. "This," he snarled, "is the most powerful weapon in existence. It has slain beings beyond your comprehension." He lunged, the weapon's aura screaming as it sought Rimuru's life. And then, time seemed to slow. 2 fingers. That's all Rimuru raised. The trident's shaft met those fingers, and stopped. Jahel's eyes went wide. His weapon trembled violently, as though trying to escape. The oppressive aura of origin blood clashed against Rimuru's casual, almost bored grip, and lost. Snap! The sound was deafening. The weapon that had accompanied him through countless victories, his ultimate proof of supremacy, split in two as if it were brittle glass. The pieces fell, dissolving into harmless droplets of blood before they even touched the void's surface. Jahel froze. For a moment, irritation, fear, and disbelief warred across his face, but fear won. This wasn't just strength. This was authority, the kind that could crush kings and gods alike. Before he could react, Rimuru's boot slammed into his stomach. The impact folded Jahel in half, forcing a strangled gasp from his lungs as he staggered back. Pain exploded through his core. Rimuru's voice cut through the air like ice. "You're so prideful, you'll never accept defeat. Do you really think you can beat me with that Genesis-class weapon?" Jahel glared up at him, but there was a tremor in his jaw now. Rimuru closed the distance, his hand beginning to glow with a heat so intense the air shimmered. Without hesitation, he pressed it to Jahel's face. The scream tore from Jahel's throat instantly, raw, animal, and loud enough to shatter glass if any existed here. But Rimuru didn't blink. The agony wasn't just physical. Memories that weren't his slammed into him. Kigali's pain, the sheer horror of being torn from her identity and forced into another body. The helpless despair of elves and humans tortured for amusement. Villages engulfed in flames. The smell of burning flesh. The endless chorus of screams begging for mercy that never came. He felt it all. Every atrocity. Every heartbeat of suffering. Every moment of hopelessness. Seal. This pain will never stop. And he deserves it for everything he's done. "You're right, Seal." Rimuru's tone didn't carry even a hint of pity. He let Jahel writhe for another heartbeat, then withdrew his hand. "Maybe I'll gift you to Milam and Kigali. Let them take their revenge first." Jahel collapsed, still screaming uncontrollably, his body twitching from the pain that would never end. The once proud king of high humans now looked like nothing more than a broken, pitiful animal. Rimuru gave him one last contemptuous kick before turning away. His coat shifted in the void's still air as the imaginary space rippled at his will. He stepped through without looking back, leaving Jahel trapped in eternal darkness, his agony unending. The void shattered like glass. A ripple of distortion spread outward, and I stepped out of the imaginary space with a slow exhale. My expression? Satisfied. Thoroughly. The kind of satisfied you only get after serving someone a full-course meal of pain and watching them choke on every bite. Time in the real world had barely moved. It was still 4:35 in the morning. Outside, The air clung to that pre-dawn stillness where even the wind seemed hesitant to breathe. "Seal," I said casually, as if I hadn't just broken one of the most dangerous beings alive, "I want you to erase Footman's memories, heal him up, and teleport him to the Ogre village." "Understood." Removing memories that would disrupt the timeline. Healing complete. Initiating teleportation. Yuki and his merry little band of troublemakers didn't need to start stirring the pot just yet. The timeline could handle small waves. What it couldn't handle was me dropping a full-blown tsunami into it. Footman's limp body flickered into view, the damage gone, his mind blissfully offline. A portal swirled open, and I shoved him through. Destination: Ogre Village. His friends would find him there, none the wiser. Job done. I opened the door to my house, letting its warmth wrap around me. Two familiar presences tugged at my awareness: Shizu, lying quietly in one room, her aura blending with the steady, egoless flame of a pacified spirit, and Veldora, in another room, nose deep in manga like his life depended on the next page turn. My gaze lingered on Shizu's sleeping form. Her breathing was slow, calm, and untroubled. "When will she wake up?" I asked, still watching her. "Greater than approximately 2 days." Seal replied in her perfectly even tone. 2 days, huh? I let the door click shut. She looked peaceful. No nightmares, no pain. That was enough for now. I dropped onto the couch in the living room, stretching out as my eyes drifted to the ceiling. "Hey, Seal, Jahil's weapon. I completely destroyed it in that little temper moment of mine, didn't I?" "Correct. You split it into 2 pieces, but the damage extended beyond physical form. Its energy structure was annihilated." "Yeah, I figured." I scratched my cheek. "Can we fix it?" "Affirmative. With your ultimate skill, God of space and time, Yog Sothoth, restoration is possible." "Then do it." I leaned forward. "I don't have a decent weapon right now. My original sword, Kasumi, is, well, let's just say I'm not eager to swing it without reason. It's made from 4 Genesis-class weapons. If one Genesis-class weapon can level a city in a single swing. I don't even want to imagine what Kasumi would do. Kasumi is my greatest creation," Seal stated without a hint of modesty. "It could kill a true dragon in one touch, and if wielded with the 3 true dragon cores of Veldora, Velgrand, and Velzard, combined with null energy and stardust energy, the resulting effect could be beyond even my calculations." A bead of sweat rolled down my temple. "Yeah, definitely not something I want falling into enemy hands." "Impossible," she replied smoothly. "Kasumi has acknowledged only you, Master. Aside from you, only the creator of the world, Veldanava, the Star King Dragon, could wield it." "Fair point." I nodded, letting that relief sink in. "All right then, fix Jahil's trident, Origin Blood, and summon it here. In the last timeline, you were the only one who got to experiment with it. I want to see it for myself this time." Restoration complete. Summoning now. In my hand, a crimson trident materialized, its surface shimmering with a faint, blood-like sheen that pulsed in sync with a heartbeat that wasn't mine. Each pulse was deep and resonant, like the echo of some ancient predator stirring from hibernation. The air shifted. It wasn't just around me, it was inside me. My magicules rippled, drawn into the weapon as if it were tasting me, judging me. Almost immediately, the glow deepened. The crimson grew darker, richer, until it resembled molten metal fresh from the forge. Faint veins of black threaded through the surface, pulsing like a circulatory system of shadow. The faint scent of ozone hung in the air, the prelude to a storm. "Seal, what's going on?" "Origin Blood acknowledges only strength. You are currently the strongest being in existence. It is resonating with your will." The trident shuddered in my grip. Then came the sound of metal groaning and singing all at once, like a sword being drawn from the bones of the world itself. The 3 blades began to curl inward, their edges folding like molten ribbons, twisting into a helix before flaring outward again. Crimson light burst from the weapon's core, scattering motes of energy that dissolved into the shadows around me. The haft elongated, its surface becoming blackened steel streaked with deep crimson veins. Where the trident's head had been, a single, enormous crescent blade unfurled, wickedly curved, with edges so fine they seemed to cut the very light that touched them. The village was already awake, dwarves heading to workshops with tools slung over their shoulders, goblins carrying baskets of fresh vegetables, and wolves stretching after their night patrols. Inside the guest house, a muffled groan broke the quiet. "Oh, what time is it?" Guido muttered, rubbing his eyes. His hair was a complete disaster, like he'd lost a fight with his pillow. "It's morning," Ellen yawned, pulling on her cloak. "Come on, get dressed. We promised to check out the market today." "Hey." Caval's voice cut in from the window. "What the hell are those doing here?" The three of them scrambled to the door and stepped outside. Across the square, a group of towering figures moved gracefully among the villagers' ogres. Proud and imposing, their horns caught the sunlight like polished ivory, and they carried themselves with the kind of confidence that came naturally to warriors. "Oh crap, oh crap, oh crap." Guido's voice pitched higher with every word. "That's an ogre. That's 6 ogres. Why are there ogres here?" "Caval," Ellen hissed, "the ogres are the most powerful race in the Jura forest. If they're here, something big happened." They hurried down into the street, panic rising. Caval waved over a goblin passing by, balancing a stack of neatly folded clothes. "Hey, you," Caval stammered. "What's going on? Why are the ogres here?" The goblin blinked, shifting the clothes in his arms. "Ah, you must be Rimuru-sama's guests. I am Garmak. The ogre village, it was destroyed. They came here seeking shelter." The trio froze. "Destroyed? By who?" Ellen demanded. "Who could even do that?" Garmak's expression tightened. "I do not know. You should ask Rimuru-sama. He was the one who welcomed them." That was all the prompting they needed. "Let's go," Caval barked, already sprinting down the street. Ellen and Guido followed, weaving through goblins, dwarves, and crates until they reached a large, well-kept house. Without hesitation, Caval shoved the door open, nearly tripping over his own feet. Inside, a tall man with golden hair sat in an armchair, calmly flipping through a thick book. He was dressed in a crisp white shirt beneath a tailored jacket, a ruby locket glinting at his chest, the outfit clearly new, and knowing Rimuru, probably a gift. The man's amber eyes flicked up briefly before he returned to reading. Veldora. Before they could speak, footsteps approached from the hallway. "Morning," I greeted, adjusting the sleeves of my black coat. "You guys look like you just saw a ghost. What happened?" Caval blurted without hesitation. "Where's Shizu? And why are there ogres in your city?" I told them Shizu was fine, but she was currently sleeping and would need about 2 days to recover. "As for the ogres," I continued, "they came here because an orc army is moving toward the Jura forest." That was all I said. "No, orc lord, no, 200,000 troops." Yeah, sure, I could have dropped the whole truth on them right then, but what would that do? They'd panic, rush off, and probably get themselves killed before they could even scream for help. Better to give them the PG-13 version and keep the nightmare fuel to myself. Even with my filtered version, their faces still drained of color. "So, what should we do?" Caval asked, his voice tight. "If you want, you can head back and inform your guild master," I said. "Shizu's staying here. In her condition, she can't travel with you." Caval and Guido exchanged a quick nod, already shifting into "let's get moving" mode. But Ellen stayed quiet, her gaze flicking toward the hallway. "Can I see her?" she asked softly. "Just once more." I gave a small nod. "Sure." We walked to Shizu's room. Morning light streamed in through the curtains, casting a gentle glow over her face. She lay peacefully beneath the blankets, her breathing slow and even, the faint warmth of the Flame Lord spirit flickering inside her like an ember that refused to go out. Ellen stepped closer, her boots making almost no sound against the floor. She looked down at Shizu for a long moment, her expression caught somewhere between relief and worry. "She really does look at peace," Ellen murmured. "If I didn't know what she'd been through." She trailed off, shaking her head slightly. I leaned against the doorway, crossing my arms. "She's tougher than she looks, but she's not unbreakable." "Not yet. That's why I'm here." Ellen turned to me, her eyes locking onto mine. There was a quiet intensity in them. "We'll come back. But until then, please, take care of her." I met her gaze and gave a small, confident smile. "I will. You have my word. Don't worry, because if something happens to her before you return, I'll never forgive myself." Something in her shoulders eased at that, and she nodded once before stepping back. Before they left, I handed each of them new weapons and armor gear I'd forged myself. Nothing too flashy, but strong enough to keep them from getting themselves killed if trouble found them on the road. With a final glance back at Shizu's room, Ellen turned and followed Caval and Guido out the door. The three of them set off toward the guild, carrying news that would no doubt shake a few people. The idiot trio had barely disappeared down the road when Veldora and I settled back into the living room. Veldora was nose deep in some manga, flipping pages with the intensity of a man treating every panel like sacred scripture. Meanwhile, I pulled out a slim book, a love story. Yeah, that kind of love story. If Shizu was going to wake up soon, I might as well have a few romantic lines ready. Gotta impress, right? I whispered to Seal through our mental link. Hey, can you find me some sweet but not cheesy quotes? Something I can drop casually when Shizu wakes? Already on it. Also contacting Lyra for advice. She's currently making breakfast for Ethan. I chuckled. Not jealous or anything, but it was still weird knowing Ethan had a beautiful girlfriend/housewife while I was still single. And, well, a virgin. Even after all these years of ruling. That thought made me cough into my sleeve. I glanced sideways at Veldora. Hey, do you ever think about getting a girlfriend? Veldora paused his manga, frowning thoughtfully. Nope, I'm single and perfect like this. I raised an eyebrow. Not that I don't want one, he added quickly, but, girls are scary. I snorted. Tell me about it. Remember Shuna's face when she's mad? Yeah, scary enough to keep me single forever. We shared a laugh, the tension easing for a moment. Then knock. Knock. I stood, brushing dust off my coat. Looks like the ogres have made their decision. Veldora closed his manga with a dramatic sigh. Guess it's time to see what trouble they're bringing. A sharp knock echoed through the quiet house, slicing through the calm like a herald of change. I rose from the couch and moved toward the door. When I opened it, standing there was the towering figure of the white-haired ogre leader. His presence was undeniably imposing, yet his face betrayed a flicker of unease, a subtle crack in the armor of authority. Beside him stood his son, nameless Benimaru, whose usual fierce confidence was notably subdued. The weight of the moment hung heavy between them as they hesitated, casting wary glances inside. Beyond the threshold, Veldora lounged lazily on the couch, utterly absorbed in the pages of his manga. His sheer presence was like a tempest contained, an overwhelming force of nature that even the bravest might hesitate to confront. The silence in the room was thick with tension as the ogres took in their surroundings. The leader swallowed hard, steadying himself as if drawing strength from within, before stepping inside with Benimaru close behind. Their footsteps were deliberate but cautious, each step betraying a deep respect, tinged with a subtle fear, for the mighty storm dragon and the power that resided here. Clearing his throat, the leader's voice was firm, yet carried the strain of the burden he bore. Rimuru-sama, your offer is bold. I have spoken with the elders and many others in my village. After much deliberation, they agreed to forge a temporary alliance with you. The world grows ever more dangerous by the day. If we fail to accept alliances like yours, annihilation will be our fate. Nameless Benimaru's eyes flickered across the room, briefly meeting Veldora's piercing gaze before settling back on me. The usual fire that burned within him was tempered by the gravity of the moment. He gave a slight, respectful nod and unspoken acknowledgement of the path they had chosen. After a measured silence, the leader's tone sharpened with resolve. We accept your offer. I met their eyes with a warm, steady smile, sensing the weight that lifted from their shoulders. The tension ebbed, and Benimaru's posture straightened, the spark of his fierce spirit returning, albeit tempered by caution. Good, I said firmly, the conviction in my voice unmistakable. Because you have accepted my offer, I will name 7 of your people as a symbol of our alliance. Chapter 14. Into the abyss. The white-haired ogre leader stiffened at my words. His brows furrowed, crimson eyes narrowing as he weighed the weight of what I had just offered. To give us names, he muttered, his stern gaze lingering on me. That is no small thing, Rimuru-sama. Such an act drains a master of their very life force. To name even one of us is dangerous, but to name several? It could kill you. For a fleeting moment, genuine concern flickered across his face. His hand curled into a fist at his side, as though silently asking, why would you risk so much for strangers like us? But then, a memory surfaced. He had seen the goblin village I'd built, once frail and weak, now standing tall and proud. The goblins bore names, and with them, strength. Warriors now, not beggars. If he could grant such power to mere goblins, the leader thought, then perhaps he could do the same for us. The ogres needed that power more than ever. Slowly, he straightened, his frame hardening with renewed resolve. Meeting my golden eyes, he declared with steady conviction. We are ready. At his side, his son, the nameless Benimaru, turned sharply toward him. Father. Are you certain about this? His voice carried unease, the fire in his eyes dimmed by doubt. The leader gave a single, solemn nod. Benimaru's lips parted as though to argue, but he stopped. His fists tightened at his sides. To let him name us carries risk. But if we refuse, we remain powerless. What choice do I have but to follow Father's will? After a long silence, he lowered his head. Very well. Good, I said with a light smile. The tension in the room felt almost alive, though none of them sensed the faint thread of influence guiding their thoughts. They were wavering. CL's serene voice echoed in my mind. So I ensured their hesitation would crumble. A subtle correction, nothing more. Now they will accept naming, and in time, accept you as their rightful master. You really don't pull your punches, huh? I thought, half amused, half wary. Of course not, she replied smoothly. If I left everything to you, master, we'd still be here while you tried to talk them into liking you. You'd be hopeless without me. Oh, so that's how it is? I smirked inwardly. One of these days I'll prove I can do things without you. You won't, she teased. Because you'd never want to do anything without me. Damn it, why does she always get the last word? Unaware of her unseen hand, the ogres stood grim but resolute. They had chosen. And with that, the first step toward reshaping their destinies began. After that, Rimuru, the white-haired ogre leader, and the nameless Benimaru left Veldora sulking in the house. The storm dragon had been grumbling ever since the meeting ended, but Rimuru figured giving him space was better than listening to his tantrum. The three of them strolled through the lively streets of Tempest. It was still a sight that amazed Rimuru every time he saw it. Goblin children darted between houses, laughing as they chased each other with makeshift wooden toys. Others worked diligently, hauling lumber, carrying stone, or plowing fields. The dwarf brothers were among them, their deep voices carrying above the clamor as they barked instructions with the sharpness of veterans. The goblins hung on every word, eager to follow, copying each motion with serious determination. This wasn't the frail, pitiful village Rimuru had once encountered. This was something new, something alive. The ogre leader's crimson eyes softened as he watched. His people had always looked down on goblins, dismissing them as weaklings incapable of growth. Yet here, under Rimuru's guidance, they thrived. The sight struck him with both admiration and guilt, pride for what had been accomplished, and shame for the prejudice he once held. Beside him, Benimaru furrowed his brows, saying nothing. He was too proud to voice it aloud, but even he couldn't hide the flicker of surprise in his eyes. Goblins, building, farming, wielding tools with skill? Such a sight defied everything he thought he knew. This time, it was different. Thanks to CL's subtle touch, the goblins now possessed sharper minds and stronger bodies. The potential for growth was staggering. In only a short time, this place could rise into a true city. As Rimuru walked, he caught sight of a familiar figure lurking nearby. Gobta. His eyes shone with shameless intent as he stared at a group of goblin girls, a grin plastered across his face as though he thought himself irresistible. The girls noticed instantly. Their gazes hardened, sandals raised. Before Gobta could even stammer out an excuse, a flurry of slippers smacked down on his head. He yelped, arms flailing wildly as the girls scolded him without mercy. That guy really never learns, Rimuru muttered. Honestly, I don't even feel bad for him. CL's voice chimed smoothly in his mind, tinged with amusement. Hey, fair enough, Rimuru replied under his breath, watching Gobta collapse in defeat while the girls marched off, satisfied with their justice. The ogre leader blinked, baffled. Is this normal behavior here? Benimaru pinched the bridge of his nose, sighing. I fear for the future if that one is considered a warrior. Rimuru only grinned, pretending not to hear. For a moment, his thoughts wandered. Ethan and Lyra. Where did those two slip off to? He hadn't seen them since yesterday. The thought lingered briefly, but he let it go. They were capable. He trusted they were fine. Then, a ripple of thought communication stirred in his mind. Ryu and Yukiko's voices echoed clearly. Rimuru-sama. Bad news. The orcs are moving again. He continued walking. The report continued. The ravenous horde had devoured every monster Veldora left in the ogre village. Worse still, some had attacked the footmen. Footman, already weakened, had been overwhelmed, his arm bitten off while he lay unconscious. Laplace had barely managed to save him before the orcs finished the job. Rimuru grimaced. TCH. Poor guy. First, Veldora had nearly killed Footman with a casual slap. Now, he had almost been eaten alive. Even for someone as troublesome as him, that was cruel. Rimuru couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy. "You're too soft, master," Seal remarked, though her tone carried no scolding, just amusement. "Maybe so," Rimuru admitted with a sigh. Shaking off the thought, Rimuru and his companions pressed on until they reached a quieter corner of Tempest. Before them stood a cluster of Japanese-style houses. Their tiled roofs gleamed under the afternoon sun, wooden panels polished to a warm finish. The air was calmer here, distant from the busy streets. Several ogre warriors stood outside, steadily sharpening their weapons and polishing armor. The rasp of whetstones rang rhythmically, mingling with the faint scent of fresh tatami drifting from within. At once, the ogres straightened, their gazes snapping toward their returning leader. Their eyes flickered briefly to Rimuru, but though curiosity burned in them, none dared to speak. Rimuru's lips curved faintly. He had crafted these homes with care, modeled after the land of his origin, Japan. Not only to give the ogres a sense of belonging, but also for Shizu's sake. He wanted her to feel at home, surrounded by reminders of the country she once cherished. And perhaps, it was also to impress the ogres themselves, whose own culture bore shades of Japan. Here, they could feel a little closer to home. "Looks familiar, doesn't it?" Rimuru murmured softly, almost to himself. The ogre leader's eyes flickered with unspoken thoughts, while Benimaru stood beside him in silence, crimson gaze sharp yet contemplative. The night before, the ogres had gathered in their temporary lodging. Firelight flickered across their solemn faces as they argued in low voices. Some suggested swearing loyalty to Rimuru, who had given them shelter and the promise of vengeance. Others scoffed at the idea. Their pride as ogres would never allow them to kneel so easily before another. In the end, their decision was unanimous, a temporary alliance. They would fight beside him, but they would not yet submit. The following morning, when Rimuru arrived with the ogre lord and his son, the ogres stood silently. Their crimson eyes fixed on him, sharp and unyielding. They studied every detail, the black-haired man, his golden eyes glimmering with an unsettling calm, the composed way he carried himself. "Who is this guy?" The thought ran through their minds. The ogre lord stepped forward, voice steady. "This man is Rimuru Tempest, lord of this city, and the one who sent Veldora to our village." A ripple of shock spread through the group. Brows furrowed, fists clenched, gazes hardened. That unassuming man? Their pride rejected it. A true ruler of monsters should look terrifying, monstrous even, something that inspired dread. Yet Rimuru looked calm, too relaxed, ordinary, even. The ogre lord continued, his tone heavier. "And more than that, Rimuru-sama has declared he will name 7 among us, as proof of our alliance." The words dropped like thunder. "What?" One ogre gasped. "Does he even have that power?" whispered another. "To name 7. That could kill even a great lord," another muttered. Murmurs spread rapidly. Suspicion, doubt, disbelief. Yet none openly questioned their leader's words. If he had spoken them, they must be true. Rimuru sighed inwardly and stepped forward. His golden eyes caught each of theirs, one by one, and his lips curved into a calm smile. "Yes," Rimuru said simply, his voice steady. "I am going to name 7 of you." The weight of his words pressed down on them like stone. Their eyes widened, their expressions froze. No one dared to speak. "Quite the entrance, master." Ciel's warm, teasing voice echoed in his mind. "Their reactions are priceless. You should thank me. Without my adjustments, they'd probably be shouting right now." Rimuru chuckled inwardly. "Yeah, thanks partner. You really are the best." His gaze fell on the ogre lord's son. With a calm smile, Rimuru raised a hand. "From today on, your name shall be Benimaru." In that instant, magicules burst from Rimuru's body, swirling around the young ogre. The energy enveloped him completely, cocooning him in a storm of light. The other ogres gasped. Their eyes widened in disbelief as they witnessed the impossible. When the light faded, the once nameless ogre stood transformed. His crimson eyes gleamed sharper, his body slimmer yet radiating immense strength. His features refined, his aura overwhelming. A higher being, no longer just an ogre. A Kijin, one of them whispered in awe. Even the ogre lord stiffened, stunned by the sight of his son. Benimaru, you've evolved. Benimaru looked down at his hands, then clenched his fists. His body felt lighter, overflowing with strength. What happened to me? He asked, astonished. Rimuru smiled. You've evolved into a Kijin, thanks to my powers. The other ogres exchanged stunned looks. For them, Kijin were nothing more than legend. No ogre alive had ever seen one, until now. And one stood before them. Even the ogre lord's stern composure faltered. In Rimuru's mind, Ciel's voice explained with calm precision. He has indeed become powerful. But I held back. If I had given him everything, he would already possess the strength to slay 100,000 orcs alone. That level of power would disrupt the balance before you're ready. Rimuru nodded inwardly. Good call. I don't need him turning into a one-man army just yet. Facing the rest of the ogres, Rimuru spoke aloud. It's true. Benimaru has become powerful. But remember, he is not at full strength. He could have been even stronger, but I held back. After all, you are not my subordinates. The words struck them like lightning. Their crimson eyes widened as the meaning sank in. If what Rimuru said was true, then Benimaru had not even reached his full potential. And yet he already radiated overwhelming might. The ogres exchanged uneasy glances. Doubt wavered in their pride. For the first time, a thought crept into their heart. I turned my gaze toward the old man, the ogre lord, Benimaru's father, who had stood quietly among the ogres. His hair was already white, deep wrinkles marked his face, yet the sharpness in his golden eyes was undeniable. He carried himself with dignity, and though his body bore the weight of age, his spirit had not dimmed. Taking a breath, I raised my hand toward him. Your name shall be Akatsuro. The moment I spoke the name, a dark surge of my magicules wrapped around him like a storm. Black and crimson light coursed through his body, his figure trembling under the weight of evolution. The ogres around us gasped, some stepped back in shock, while others leaned forward with wide eyes. Before their eyes, the elder they had known for so long began to change. His wrinkles smoothed, his muscles tightened, and his back straightened. The years seemed to peel away, leaving behind not a frail elder, but a warrior reborn. His long, snow-white hair gleamed under the sunlight, flowing behind him like silk. His horns, once worn and dull, grew darker, sharper, and longer, radiating strength. His golden eyes burned brighter than ever, sharp and commanding. It was as if he had stepped back into the prime of his youth. No, perhaps even stronger than that. From the window of a nearby house, a pair of eyes widened in disbelief. His wife clutched the wooden frame with trembling hands, lips parted but unable to form words. Beside her, Shuna, her soft pink hair swaying gently, pressed her hands to her mouth, eyes glistening with awe. Father, she whispered, voice trembling. The other ogres couldn't hide their reactions either. Many of them stared with jaws slack, their gazes darting between me and the newly reborn Akatsuro. As for Akatsuro himself, he looked down at his hands, flexing his fingers in stunned silence. The power within him surged wildly, like a river too great to contain. His expression hardened, then softened, confusion mixing with gratitude. Finally, he turned toward me. Rimuru-sama, he trailed off, struggling for words. He had assumed I would name only the young warriors, the ones with potential to lead Tempest in the future. He had never once considered himself worthy of such a blessing. And yet, I had chosen him. You made the correct choice, Master. Ciel's calm voice rang in my mind, a quiet reassurance that made me smile inwardly. I nodded at Akatsuro. That name suits you as the Ogre Lord. Akatsuro, the Red Blade Elder. A fitting title for a man like you. The old warrior, no, the reborn Kijin, bowed deeply. His voice was steady, but his eyes glimmered with emotions he couldn't quite conceal. I shall carry it with pride. Once the murmurs died down, I turned to the next. Among the group stood a woman whose very presence caught attention. Her purple hair fell loosely down her back, her skin a deep shade of violet that contrasted with the single curved horn upon her head. She shifted uneasily under my gaze, clearly nervous. Come forward, I called gently. She obeyed, her steps hesitant. Her hands fidgeted against her sides, and despite her tall frame and impressive figure, she looked like a child about to be scolded. I smiled at her. From today on, your name shall be Xian. Dark magicules enveloped her at once, making her gasp aloud. She stumbled slightly as the energy surged through her, wrapping her in its embrace. Her form shimmered, shifting as if the very world was molding her anew. Her horn gleamed brighter, her purple hair gained a lustrous shine, and her body strengthened, her aura becoming fierce and undeniable. When the light finally faded, she stared at her own hands in disbelief. Her lips parted, her chest rose and fell rapidly, and her eyes sparkled with wonder. I've changed, she whispered, her voice trembling. The other ogres exchanged glances, their whispers sharp and heated. Some furrowed their brows, clearly displeased. A woman. Why would Rimuru-sama waste his power on her? Surely the warriors should have been prioritized, but none dared to say it aloud. The power I had displayed was more than enough to silence even the proudest voices. And besides, she and herself stood there, her nervousness fading into determination. She clenched her fists and raised her chin, as if silently declaring that she would prove her worth. Good. That's exactly the kind of spirit I like to see. Next, I called forth the old swordsman who had been watching quietly all along. His single eye gleamed with sharp intelligence, his presence calm yet deadly. Hakuro. That shall be your name. The elder warrior bowed deeply before the magicules surged around him. His figure grew taller, his body leaner yet filled with power, his aura sharpened like the edge of a blade. When the evolution ended, he opened his eye and gave me a faint smile, the kind of smile only a seasoned veteran could wear. I shall repay this gift with my sword, he said simply. I had one more plan, Sue. I wanted the others to see what true strength looked like when I gave him his name. So, for now, I held back. I let the suspense grow, their whispers filling the air. I had named Akatsuro, Benimaru, Xian, and Hakuro. Only 3 remained for this round. Wise. By saving Sue for last, you'll maximize the psychological impact on the others. Ciel's tone carried a faint note of amusement. Exactly. Time to show the ogres why putting their pride above reason would be their biggest mistake. As I let the silence linger, I pondered for a moment on who should be next. My eyes scanned the group of ogres until they landed on one who immediately stood out. A tall, fierce ogre stood straight-backed, his presence demanding attention. Jet black hair framed his sharp features, while long gray horns curved menacingly from his head. His golden eyes glowed like molten metal, and dark markings traced his face, accentuating his sharp, almost predatory aura. When he smirked, a single fang caught the light. Yeah, this guy looked like trouble. The good kind of trouble. You, I called, pointing toward him. My voice carried across the gathering. Step forward. He did so without hesitation, each stride firm and confident. His gaze never wavered from mine, as though daring me to see him unworthy. From today on, I declared, raising my hand toward him, your name shall be Kaminari. The moment the word left my lips, my magicules surged, wrapping around him in a violent storm. Sparks crackled in the air, sharp flashes of light streaking through the dark aura. His body trembled, not in fear, but in exhilaration. His horns gleamed, sharper than before, his muscles tightened, and his aura surged outward like a roaring tempest. The ogres shielded their eyes as arcs of lightning crackled around him, tearing through the ground before fading into the air. When the storm subsided, the newly reborn Kijin stood tall, his golden eyes glowing with raw power. His smirk widened, electricity faintly dancing along his fingertips. Interesting, master. Ciel's voice slipped into my mind, calm and intrigued. His specialty lies in lightning. He has awakened as one who can wield the storm itself. I raised an eyebrow, a grin tugging at my lips. Lightning? Huh? Looks like we just got ourselves a thunder warrior. Kaminari lowered his head slightly, not quite a bow, but enough to show acknowledgement. His voice was low, edged with pride. I will strike down those filthy orc with thunder, Rimuru-sama. Yeah, I had a feeling this one was going to be fun. The atmosphere was already heavy with tension after I had named several of the ogres. Each transformation carried awe, pride, and just a touch of fear. But one still remained, one whose silent presence loomed larger than the rest. The nameless shadow. He stood at the edge of the group, quiet as ever, like a dagger hidden in the dark. His eyes didn't wander, his body didn't shift, yet everyone felt him. The others might have been warriors, but he was something else entirely, something that unsettled even his kin. I walked toward him, raising my hand. It's your turn. The ogres stiffened. Even Akatsuro narrowed his eyes, watching carefully. I gave the shadow a small smile. From this day forward, you are Sue. The moment I spoke his name, magicules poured from me like a floodgate torn open. It was heavier than before, denser, sharper, almost suffocating. The ground trembled as shadows twisted unnaturally around his body, writhing like living things. The individual Sue has gained the ultimate gift, Lord of Shadows. The others staggered back, gasping for air as the pressure mounted. When the torrent faded, the man before me was no longer the same. Sue's hair deepened into a sleek black that seemed to drink in light itself. His horns grew longer, sharper, curving with an elegant, lethal beauty. And then his eyes opened, icy, piercing blue, like the gaze of a predator born from eternal night. But what stunned everyone wasn't his appearance. It was his presence. Unlike the others, he hadn't become a Kijin. He had ascended beyond them. He had become an Oni. The ogres broke into shocked murmurs. He's different from us. That power, it's not the same as ours. Even Akatsuro clenched his fists, golden eyes flashing with disbelief. His aura wavered, as if his instincts alone recognized the threat Sue now represented. Sue himself remained calm, lowering his eyes before speaking. Rimuru-sama, why am I different? Why am I stronger than the others? The others echoed his question, their gazes heavy with confusion and envy. I let the silence stretch before answering. My voice was calm, but it carried weight. Because I didn't hold back with him. Sue, you have become a Oni. Their eyes widened. I folded my arms, letting my gaze sweep across the group. There are things only Sue can do. Work none of you are suited for. That's why I gave him more power than the rest of you. He is not one of you anymore. He has risen above. Their expressions shifted, some awe, some unease, some frustration. They couldn't deny the truth. The difference was clear. Sue bowed low, his voice solemn. Thank you for this power, Rimuru-sama. His vow only reinforced the gap between him and the others. I caught the flicker in their eyes, the hunger for strength, the desperate wish to reach the same height. Exactly what I wanted. Good. Let them feel it. Let them crave it. Because when they find themselves weak, they will have no choice but to turn to me. I smiled faintly to myself. This way, they'll submit without hesitation. Power speaks louder than words, and I've made sure they understand who grants it. The group fell into silence, their earlier pride tempered by a new, sharper emotion. Envy, awe, fear, all bound by the same truth. Only through me could they rise further. Yeah, this was the effect I wanted. After naming Kaminari and Sue, let the silence settle once more. The ogres watched me with a mixture of awe and unease, each of them waiting for their turn, their pride balancing on the knife's edge of desperation. I tilted my head slightly and asked the one voice that never failed me. So, Seal, who should I name next? There is one more warrior among them, Master. But, something about him is unusual. That piqued my curiosity. Unusual how? His magicules share an uncanny similarity to both Akatsuro and Benimaru. I blinked, caught off guard. Wait a second. What? Benimaru doesn't have a brother. Not to your knowledge. Her voice carried a mischievous lilt, and I could feel her smirking in the back of my mind. Or perhaps, Akatsuro had a secret affair with another ogre woman? That would certainly explain the similarity. I almost tripped over my own feet. Seal, seriously? You're just making things worse. Her teasing chuckle lingered, but I shook my head and followed her hint. Sure enough, my gaze landed on a bench near the edge of the gathering, where an ogre was sprawled out as if this entire ceremony meant nothing to him. He had distinct red markings beneath his eyes, striking enough that they immediately reminded me of Benimaru. The resemblance was uncanny, enough that I felt a strange heaviness in my chest. Curiosity won out. I turned toward Akatsuro. Who is that ogre? And why does his presence feel so much like yours, and Benimaru's? The old warrior's golden eyes softened as he looked toward the sleeping youth. His voice carried with it the weight of long-buried sorrow. He is my sister's son. Her husband died protecting me in battle, and she herself passed away giving birth to him. Since then, I've raised him as my own. Though, while his power is undeniable, he has always been unbearably lazy. A ripple of understanding passed through the ogres who overheard, their stern faces softening for a moment. Family ties ran deep with them, after all. I let out a slow breath. So he's not Benimaru's brother, but his cousin. That explains it. Stepping forward, I studied him more closely. Despite the heavy atmosphere surrounding us, the guy was still dead asleep. Not even the pressure of my magicules stirred him. My eyebrow twitched. Wake him up. The ogres exchanged uncertain glances before obeying. One of them returned with a bucket of water and, without hesitation, dumped it over his head. Gia! Cold, cold, cold. The young ogre bolted upright, thrashing around like a startled cat. Water dripped down his crimson robe as he blinked rapidly, trying to make sense of his surroundings. Finally, his gaze landed on me. Oi, who's this guy? He muttered, rubbing the water from his eyes. The sheer lack of awareness almost made me laugh. Instead, I smiled at him, amused. You'll find out soon enough. From this moment on, your name shall be Kyan. The name rang through the air, and my magicules surged forth instantly, wrapping around him in a torrent of power. His soaked clothes dried in an instant as his body was lifted slightly off the bench. A brilliant glow enveloped him, shaking the very ground beneath our feet. The ogres stepped back, shielding their eyes from the light. When it finally subsided, the boy was no longer the same. Kyan now stood tall and radiant. His fiery orange hair burned with faint violet undertones, cascading wildly down his back. Sharp black horns extended proudly from his head, and his piercing sky-blue eyes glowed with intensity, the red streaks beneath them more vivid than before. His crimson robe clung to him perfectly, tied with ornate ropes adorned with beads that shimmered faintly in the light. Blue spiritual flames danced around his frame, spiraling upward in a flamboyant yet dangerous display of power. He glanced down at his hands, then around at the awestruck ogres. His jaw dropped. What the hell just happened? Why do I feel like I could blow up a mountain? And, wait, who even are you people? He fired off questions like a panicked machine gun, eyes darting from me to the other ogres, clearly overwhelmed by the sudden transformation. I ignored his outburst with a calm smile, addressing everyone instead. From this day forward, if you wish to live here, you must follow the rules of Tempest. With thought communication, I summoned a few nearby hobgoblins. They hurried over, bowing. You will explain the laws of our city to them, I instructed. And make sure they begin training at once. A war is coming, and there will be no room for laziness. At that, my gaze flickered back to Kyan, who was still sputtering in disbelief, flames flickering harmlessly around him as if even he couldn't control them yet. Yeah, this one was going to be interesting. Without another word, I turned and walked away, leaving the murmurs of awe, confusion, and determination to spread through the gathered ogres. After a long day of naming and negotiations, I finally made my way back home, hoping for a moment of peace. But of course, peace is a luxury I rarely get. The first thing I saw when I opened the door was Veldora. My supposedly dignified, storm dragon, brother was half-bent inside the kitchen, rummaging through jars and pots like a bandit looting a treasure chest. Oi, what do you think you're doing? I asked flatly. Veldora's head snapped up. His golden hair was a mess, and crumbs clung to his cheek from some failed attempt at a snack. The instant he spotted me, his eyes lit up. Rimuru, he shouted, and before I could react, he hurled himself across the room. Oh, and then he was on me. Veldora, an ancient dragon who could level nations, was clinging to me like a starving puppy. Brother, do you have food? I'm starving, I groaned, trying to pry him off, but his grip was like steel. Oi! Oi! Get off me already, I'm not your dinner. With a flick of strength, I shoved him aside, sending him rolling across the tatami. He sprang back to his feet with a theatrical spin, pouting like a scolded child. HMPH. How cold-hearted, Rimuru. You dare treat your beloved brother this way? You're only my beloved brother. When you want something, I shot back. But fine, you came at the right time. I actually do have work for you. The moment I said that, his eyes glittered with anticipation. Work? Do I get food for it? Something rare? Something delicious? I smirked. Hey, better than food. I'll give you something you've never eaten before. Veldora gasped dramatically, his whole body trembling with excitement. Oh, what? Impossible. There's nothing I haven't eaten. I didn't answer right away, letting the suspense stew. Just when his curiosity piqued, a knock came at the door. Enter, I called. The door slid open, and 3 figures stepped in. Ethan, calm and sharp-eyed as ever. Lyra, smiling softly, her presence like a soothing breeze. And finally, Karis, Ifrit, his fiery aura restrained, yet burning with quiet pride. Perfect timing, I said. You three are just who I needed. Ethan bowed slightly. At your service, Lord Rimuru. Veldora eyed them curiously, then jabbed a finger at Karis. Wait a second, wasn't this guy? Don't worry about that, I interrupted. I have a task for all of you. Veldora, Ethan, and Karis, you'll form a team. Your mission is to collect my 4 dragon lords. The air grew heavy. Ethan's eyes narrowed, Karis's flames flickered with surprise, and even Veldora froze before breaking into a grin. Dragon lords. Oh, yes, I remember them. They were the greater dragons Milam captured, right? This sounds fun. He laughed like a maniac. I accept. Of course you do, I muttered. Lyra tilted her head, stepping forward. And what of me, Rimuru-sama? Shall I accompany them? I shook my head. No, I have a different request for you. I want you to stay here and take care of Shizu. I'll feel better knowing you're the one watching over her. Lyra's expression softened, and she bowed gracefully. Please go without worry. I'll take good care of her. Thanks. I smiled. Honestly, her calm reliability was a blessing. Veldora crossed his arms, puffing his chest out. So, what about you, Rimuru? Where are you going while we're doing all the hard work? I leaned back slightly, my voice dropping lower. There's someone I need to meet. A being that lives deep in the ocean. If I can make her my subordinate, she'll be an incredible asset. That caught everyone's attention. Ethan raised an eyebrow. The ocean? I wasn't aware of such an existence. Veldora frowned. Who exactly are you talking about? I shrugged. To be honest, I don't know her personally. In my previous timeline, Testarossa and Carrera stumbled upon her while exploring the sea after the Tenma War, on our newly built ship, no less, and killed her. She must have been dangerous if even those two had to team up against her. I only ever heard about her through Luminous and Elmesia. That silenced the room. Even Veldora looked thoughtful for a moment, before predictably bursting into laughter. Ku-ha-ha-ha. Dangerous or not, you think you can just tame her? As expected of my brother. I shot him a sharp look. Don't laugh too much. This isn't just for fun. He waved me off, still chuckling. Anyway, I said, straightening up. You three know your roles. Veldora, Ethan, and Karis, you go gather the 4 dragon lords. Lyra, you guard Shizu. I'll head to the ocean. They all nodded in unison. And just like that, Veldora, Ethan, Karis, and I stepped out of the house, ready to carry out our missions. Lyra lingered in the doorway, watching us fade into the distance before quietly turning back inside. My destination lay far beyond, past the skies, past Carrion's country, and deep into the endless sea. Time to see what kind of monster was waiting for me there. The wind whipped past me as I soared above Carrion's beast kingdom, the sunlight glittering off the forests and rivers far below. I didn't slow down. I just kept flying straight until the land gave way to the endless horizon of the sea. Ciel's voice slipped into my head, smooth and slightly amused. Master, why are you flying the whole way? You could simply teleport directly to the target's location. It would be far more efficient. I chuckled, letting the salty air fill my lungs. Because, Ciel, there's no fun in that. Sometimes the journey matters more than the destination. Fun, you say? I fail to see how wasting energy on unnecessary travel is entertaining. Hey, it's not wasting energy. Think of it as sightseeing. Besides, when was the last time we just flew across the open ocean without worrying about wars, demon lords, or world-ending threats? When you forcibly dragged me along during your visit to Milam's domain. Okay, that doesn't count. That was work disguised as fun. Ciel sighed in my head, though I was pretty sure she wasn't actually exasperated. She just liked pretending she was above such things. Hours passed as I skimmed the sky, the deep blue sea stretching endlessly in every direction. Eventually, the air grew stiller, heavier, as if even the clouds hesitated to drift too far out here. Finally, I stopped, hovering in place, staring down at the rolling waves beneath me. This should be the spot, right? Correct. The being you seek is directly below. To meet her, you must dive into the depths. I narrowed my golden eyes at the ocean. From up here, it just looked like an endless expanse of dark water. But I knew better. My mind drifted back to a certain meeting long ago, or rather, in the previous timeline. Luminous and Elmesia had warned me about a strange, forgotten existence in the deep. She's not a natural creature, Luminous had said with her usual cool tone, the candlelight glinting in her crimson eyes. Twilight Valentine created her, a failed experiment he cast aside. Elmesia, ever the scholar, had filled in the details. He attempted to blend the essence of a water spirit with that of an angel. To grant her form, he fused the mixture with a powerful ocean monster. The result was unique, but imperfect. She cannot leave the sea. Worse, she is the only one of her kind. A lonely mistake, drifting in the abyss. The memory still lingered. Twilight Valentine, in his endless attempts to impress Veldanava, had tried to fashion a new race of water-born lifeforms. But when the prototype failed to meet his expectations, he abandoned her to the deep like broken glass tossed into the sea. She's lived all this time down here, alone. My voice was low and thoughtful. You sound sympathetic, Master. Wouldn't you be, Seal? Imagine existing as the only one of your kind. No family, no species, just you. No wonder she turned into a monster in the eyes of others. Perhaps. But it also means she will be powerful. Her essence is a fusion of divine and spiritual energy, stabilized within a monstrous body. Such a being could not be weak. Yeah, that's exactly why I want her. My lips curved into a small smile. A failed experiment, abandoned by her creator? Sounds like the perfect ally for me. Without further hesitation, I folded my wings and dove. The wind howled in my ears before the ocean swallowed me whole. Cold pressure slammed against my body, but it might as well have been a gentle breeze. My draconic nature made such things meaningless. The deeper I sank, the darker it became, until sunlight was only a fading memory above me. The sea was alive in its own way. Hulking shadows swam past, leviathans with too many eyes, serpents that stretched for miles, and swarms of razor-finned fish moving like a single entity. Shipwrecks littered the slopes of undersea cliffs, some bearing the banners of the Eastern Empire, others from nameless explorers who had dared to chart the sea and failed. If a normal human, or even most monsters, descended this far, the crushing pressure would have reduced them to pulp. Vision was useless in the abyss. But to me, the darkness was nothing. My senses pierced through it easily. Master, the deeper you go, the more distorted the surrounding mana becomes. This region has been shaped by her presence for centuries. Yeah, I can feel it. The water itself feels alive. I kept sinking, faster now, the abyss pulling me in. The silence of the deep pressed around me, broken only by the distant groans of titanic creatures moving in the dark. And somewhere below, I felt it, an aura. Ancient, lonely, powerful, the failed creation of Twilight Valentine, the last of her kind. And soon, perhaps, my newest subordinate. Chapter 15, Empress of the Deep Sea. Saphira, the water around me was heavy, crushing, and endless. Even with my true dragon body, the sheer pressure at this depth was something else entirely. It wasn't painful to me, but the sensation was oppressive, like the entire ocean wanted to squeeze the life out of everything inside it. Master, we are 30,000 meters deep inside the water, Ciel's calm voice echoed in my mind, almost cheerful despite the suffocating darkness surrounding us. 30,000, huh? I muttered, scanning the void. And I can still keep going. This is insane. Not even a flicker of light reached this far. The world here was complete darkness, silent and merciless. Any normal person, hell, even demon lords like Luminous, would be crushed into nothingness long before reaching this point. I could almost picture her pale face twisting in irritation at the thought. But me? I was a true dragon. To me, this pressure was nothing more than a mild inconvenience. Still, without Ciel guiding me, I doubted I would have made it this far. I sighed. Ciel, if you weren't with me, I don't think I could have come here. For now you admit it. You are nothing without me, Master, she replied in a teasing, sing-song voice. Why did I even say that out loud? I groaned. My mistake. Too late. I'm recording this for eternity. I felt my non-existent cheeks twitch. Great. Now I'll never live this down. Before I could retort, Ciel's voice softened into something more serious. Master, if you want to meet that being, you must release your demon Lord Haki. Only then will she sense you. Fine. Let's do this. I spread my aura. The result was immediate. My presence poured into the ocean, a suffocating darkness that even I found overwhelming. Countless monsters lurking in the abyss fled instantly, scattering like insects before a wildfire. The sea that had been filled with faint movements turned silent, as if even the water itself feared to stir. The very currents trembled under the weight of my aura. And then, something stirred from below. Something vast. The water shuddered with each pulse of her movement, sending shockwaves through the abyss. I focused, narrowing my golden eyes, and then I saw her. At first, it was just a pale blur, far beneath me. But slowly, the shape became clear. A massive, humanoid jellyfish-like creature emerged from the darkness. Her entire body was an eerie, shimmering white, almost translucent like moonlight seen through fog. Her form was crowned with long, flowing strands, hair like filaments that drifted in the water like silk threads. Her eyes were closed, serene and unseeing, yet I felt them burning against my soul. Her tentacles stretched endlessly, coiling and swaying with a grace that belied their lethality. A chill crawled down my spine. Seal. How big is she? Approximately 500 meters. Seal responded casually. 500? My voice cracked in disbelief. That's a mountain-sized jellyfish. Before I could process further, the abyssal being roared, an ear-splitting, guttural sound that wasn't heard through ears but felt in the bones and soul. The water itself trembled violently as she charged, swinging her massive tentacles with a speed that shouldn't have been possible for something that size. Reflex took over. I darted back 20 meters in an instant, her enormous strike cutting through the spot I had just occupied. The water pressure from the attack alone could have pulverized steel into dust. Hey, what's her problem? I shouted while dodging another strike, twisting through the abyss as her tentacles whipped around me like serpents. You are an unknown intruder radiating power beyond her comprehension. To her, you are danger incarnate. And this place, this abyss, is her territory. Of course she attacks. I'm not here to fight. I snapped, narrowly sliding past a glowing poisonous filament that sliced the water where my face had been seconds earlier. Then try communication, Seal suggested. Raise your voice. Though sound carries poorly in water, she might still sense the intent. I clenched my jaw, flipping past another devastating swing that sent currents spiraling around me. Hey, I don't want to fight. I bellowed, amplifying my voice with magic. My words rumbled through the abyss, vibrating the water itself. But there was no response. No recognition. Her eyes remained closed, her assault relentless. She's not listening, I growled, forced into a desperate dance, weaving through a forest of titanic tentacles. Each one glittered faintly with venom, their tips dripping death itself. The strikes grew faster and sharper, like she was determined to crush me into nothing. Suddenly, one strike came faster than the others. A whip-like tentacle lashed at my head with terrifying precision. I barely twisted aside, but the edge grazed me, tearing open the tied strands of my tied hair. My long azure locks unraveled in the water, streaming out around me like a glowing veil. TCH. My eyes widened. That was too close. Master, Seal warned sharply, if that had hit directly, even though your body would have remained unscathed, the venom is on the level of eroding concepts themselves. Not even gods would take it lightly. I gritted my teeth, dodging another barrage, my hair swirling around me as if marking the battlefield. She's treating me like prey. Of course, Master. She cannot hear you. That ability was lost long ago, because she did not need the ability to hear or speak in the abyss. She was born alone, and for 2,175 years, she has lived alone. In silence. In darkness. With no need for words. What? My movements stuttered for the briefest instant, but I quickly twisted away from another attack. If you want her to hear you, then force your way into her mind. Use thought communication. Otherwise, she will never understand. I dodged another flurry, heart-pounding. So the only way is to force a link. Exactly. Her massive body loomed closer, tentacles surrounding me from every angle. Her power was suffocating and terrifying, not because I couldn't handle it, but because she was so utterly alien. I reached out with my mind, pouring my will into the void between us. Listen to me. Her tentacles froze mid-swing. For the first time, her entire body stilled. Because she had heard me. Inside her mind, my voice had reached her. Her massive tentacles froze mid-swing, the water around us trembling with the violent momentum she had been about to unleash. The abyss went still, eerily still, as if even the ocean itself was holding its breath. 30,000 meters under, where light and warmth had long ceased to exist, silence pressed against me harder than the crushing pressure ever could. You can hear me, right? I pushed the thought through the forced link, forcing calm into my voice even though she had almost skewered me alive a moment ago. For a long second, nothing. Then, her closed eyelids quivered, and an echoing voice brushed against my mind. It was soft and feminine but laced with disbelief, like a half-broken whisper. "You can talk to me? How? No one has spoken to me here. Not since Father Twilight Valentine left me in this abyss." Her body shifted uneasily, and even that small movement stirred currents like tidal waves, forcing me back a few meters. Her tendrils flexed restlessly, curling and unfurling like living storms, betraying the agitation beneath her calm front. "Why are you so surprised?" I asked, voice gentle but firm. "Because," her voice grew sharper, almost accusing, "the only ones able to reach me are Father, Twilight Valentine, and my siblings, the others he created. No outsider should be able to." A small grin tugged at my lips despite the danger. "Let's just say I'm someone special." Her vast white form loomed before me, ghostly in the abyss. She tilted her head ever so slightly, strands of pale, hair-like filaments flowing like silk in the deep currents. Her tone dropped lower, wary. "Then why have you come here?" I didn't hesitate. "I won't lie to you, I came here to make you my subordinate." The instant those words left my mind, the abyss roared. The water itself vibrated with her fury, a booming pressure wave slamming into me. Her voice was no longer soft but like a cracking whip, jagged with rage. "Nonsense. That will never happen. Leave this place at once." "Why?" I pressed, refusing to budge. Her tentacles lashed violently against the seabed below, gouging massive trenches into the ocean floor. The sheer force churned the water into a vortex, dragging countless smaller sea monsters into its grip, creatures that screamed once before vanishing into pulp. The scene was brutal, and it was only a temper tantrum. Because my only master is Twilight Valentine, my creator, my father. Her mental voice shook with conviction, but beneath it lingered pain. "I will not submit to anyone else." I narrowed my golden eyes, my aura sharpening like a blade. "Twilight Valentine is dead. He's not coming back for you. To him, you were nothing more than a failed experiment." The ocean shuddered, her gigantic body trembling. For the first time, she faltered. The silence that followed was suffocating. "I know," she finally admitted, her voice faint, stripped bare of its earlier fury. That single whisper pierced deeper than any tentacle could. She knew, she had always known, and still, then why stay here? I demanded, my voice rising, reverberating across the abyss. "Why keep waiting for someone who abandoned you? Come with me. I won't discard you. I'll value your strength. You deserve more than chains and solitude." For a heartbeat, I thought I saw hesitation. But then she laughed. Not a soft laugh, a thunderous, cruel laugh that rattled the ocean, echoing off the darkness like a funeral bell. "No, I will never go with you. I will only accept you under one condition: if you defeat me in battle. Prove you are stronger than me, stronger even than Father. Only then will I swear loyalty. But if you fail..." Her countless tentacles flared outward, filling the darkness, blotting out every escape. They shimmered with a faint, ghastly light, glowing veins of venom that hissed as they bled poison into the water. "A toxic storm, beautiful and deadly. Then you will become my prey for insulting him." I bared my teeth in a feral grin, golden eyes blazing like twin suns against the void. The suffocating abyss cracked under my aura, water trembling as if the ocean itself feared what was about to unfold. "Are you sure about this?" My voice carried sharp, taunting confidence. "Yes," she hissed. "Prove yourself, intruder. Then it's decided." The instant the thought ended, she struck. Dozens, no, hundreds, of colossal tentacles shot forward with blistering speed, each thicker than a ship's mast, glowing with venom potent enough to kill even demon lords in seconds. The water screamed as the poison spread, sizzling black trails through the abyss. And I moved. The ocean screamed. It wasn't just her roar. It was the sound of the abyss itself shattering under her wrath. The pressure, the weight, and the primal rage that rolled off her body were enough to crush entire mountains into powder. Tentacles thicker than towers erupted from the bottomless dark, blotting out the faint bioluminescent glow of the deep. In that moment, it felt like the sea itself was no longer water. It was her flesh. Not dozens. Not hundreds. Not thousands. Hundreds of thousands. A living storm of limbs and venom, every movement like the lash of a god. They didn't descend on me. They devoured the very space I existed in. The first wave came down with a force that could split continents. The water detonated, shockwaves rippling through leagues of ocean. The seabed itself cracked apart, ridges collapsing in on themselves as though the abyss were imploding. I twisted at the last instant, my body flowing like smoke between the crushing limbs. The sheer pressure clawed at me even when they missed, bones rattling under the distortion of the currents. The second wave followed instantly, faster, sharper, and hungrier. Tentacles streaked down like spears, venom dripping in clouds that turned the waters black. Where the poison touched, the ocean frothed and boiled, as though the abyss itself was being corroded into nothingness. Everywhere I looked, everywhere I turned, there was nothing but her writhing mass. Not letting me breathe, huh? I muttered under my breath, my voice edged with irritation. My golden eyes flared like twin suns in the void, light piercing the crushing dark. I cracked my knuckles. The sound echoed unnaturally loud, like the sea itself was listening. Then I struck. My fist tore through the water, breaking it apart as though even the ocean couldn't withstand me. My knuckles slammed into one of the colossal limbs, ripping it to pieces in a violent spray of violet blood. The pressure wave shredded nearby tentacles in its wake. Another surged up from below. I twisted, spun with the current, and drove my heel downward. Bone cracked like thunder. The tentacle snapped in half like brittle wood, the shock reverberating for miles. But for every one I destroyed, 1,000 more came to take its place. They coiled around me, arms, legs, waist, even my throat. The crushing grip was beyond mortal comprehension, like being caught in the jaws of the ocean itself. Bones strained, flesh bent, my body was moments away from being torn apart. Her intent was clear. She didn't want to kill me quickly. She wanted to rip me apart piece by piece, to scatter my remains across the abyss until even memory dissolved. Not happening, I roared back. My voice rippled through the sea like a counter shockwave, defiant against her wrath. Muscles surged, my aura flaring outward like molten fire, and I tore free. Tentacles ripped apart in my grip, snapping like rotten chains. Blood exploded outward in colossal clouds, staining the abyss a hellish violet. Her shriek followed instantly, high and furious, vibrating the water until entire mountains on the seabed collapsed into dust. Still, she didn't stop. Dozens more shot up from the ocean floor. Hundreds spiraled down from above. Thousands more closed in from every angle, weaving a prison of living flesh. The abyss had become a cage designed only for me. I spun through the onslaught. My fists blurred until they became afterimages, every punch detonating the water like underwater explosions. Tentacles shredded, torn apart in sprays of gore and shattered bone. The abyss was no longer an ocean. It was war itself. Blood, venom, roaring shockwaves, her ceaseless screams. Her tactics changed. Poison gushed from her body, pouring from every pore like ink. The black fog billowed through the currents, thick and suffocating. The water burned just being near it, sizzling, boiling, and turning into something that wasn't even liquid anymore. The seabed melted. Entire ridges corroded into sludge. Even ancient bones buried for millennia disintegrated to dust. The abyss itself was dissolving into nothingness. I narrowed my eyes as the clouds surged, swallowing the world whole. Poison mist, huh? Nice try. The darkness closed in. Tentacles tore through the fog at impossible speeds, moving faster than sound could even travel underwater. One lashed past my shoulder, the sheer pressure splitting open my skin. Another nearly grazed my throat. I twisted, caught one with both hands, and pulled. The limb ripped free in a catastrophic explosion of gore. Without hesitation, I swung it like a whip. The impact of flesh against flesh cracked across the abyss. The shockwave blasted trenches deeper, scattering dead sea monsters like toys, bones spiraling upward in ghostly clouds. Her scream this time was pure rage. The kind of sound that didn't just echo through the water, it burned through the soul. And then, before my eyes, the gaping wound across her massive face sealed shut. The torn tentacle regenerated instantly, growing back thicker, sharper, and harder than before. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. My jaw clenched. Her fury only intensified. She opened her maw, a pit of teeth gleaming like obsidian blades, and lunged to swallow me whole. From deep within her throat, poison breath erupted, clouds of death surging forth to drown the sea. I darted aside, but her follow-up was relentless. Two of her massive hands slammed downward, the sheer weight colliding like crashing continents. The seabed convulsed. Fault lines split open. Volcanic vents spewed magma into the toxic ocean. I dodged, spun, and grabbed another tentacle mid-lunge. Twisting my entire body, I used her own weight against her, slamming it into her torso with the force of a collapsing mountain. Her shriek thundered again, tearing through leagues of ocean like a sonic quake. But again, the wounds sealed in seconds. Her limbs regrew faster than I could destroy them. Her poison boiled thicker, spreading wider, until the abyss was nothing but a burning, suffocating hell. This wasn't healing. This was rebirth. I floated in the storm of venom, blood dripping from my fists. For a moment, the chaos was almost silent. Just the hiss of poison eating away the ocean, just the faint hum of my body trembling with strain. Then I laughed, a low, sharp sound that cut through the suffocating dark. "You know what?" I said, golden eyes locking on her massive form. "I'll admit it. That's the strongest regeneration I've ever seen. Only I can recover that fast." Her entire body quivered with rage. Her colossal eyes burned through the abyss, fury distilled into raw hunger. I spread my arms wide as the next roar thundered out of her chest. Tentacles surged toward me in a frenzy, the ocean itself breaking apart around their descent. But no matter how fast you heal, I clenched my fists, power igniting around me like a second sun. "I'll still break you." The abyss convulsed. Poison boiled. The roar of an ancient god shook the ocean floor. And I dove headfirst into the storm of limbs and venom, ready to tear her apart all over again. I narrowed my eyes and smirked. "Let's make things faster." The words barely left my mouth when a chill swept through the ocean. The pressure, the waves, and even the abyss itself seemed to shiver in anticipation. With a sharp motion of my hand, I summoned original blood, my weapon in its truest form. The moment it appeared, the power radiating from it was unlike anything I had ever felt. The ocean trembled violently. Waves churned into towering walls of water, only to vaporize before they could even fall. Red lightning crackled across my weapon and my body, sizzling as it tore through the sea. The energy demanded blood, demanded her blood, and everything around us seemed to bow to its presence. A thrill ran through me. This is it, my first time using original blood. My pulse quickened, excitement bubbling under my calm exterior. The sheer force of the weapon instantly killed every creature in the surrounding waters. Abyssal predators, scavengers, and even the lurking mid-sized monsters, all were obliterated in a heartbeat. Silence fell. The battlefield became a void, still and empty, save for her, the jellyfish monster. She recoiled slightly, the first real hesitation I had seen. Her fear was palpable. I could see it in the twitch of her limbs, the way her massive body shivered under the overwhelming presence of original blood. Her moment of hesitation was all I needed. Tentacles lashed toward me, thousands of them, each one moving faster than thought. I moved like smoke. The side of my scythe sliced through the first wave, severing every limb cleanly in sprays of violet blood that steamed and hissed in the poisoned water. She shrieked, an ear-splitting wail that reverberated through the ocean. Her remaining tentacles surged toward me again. I didn't even hesitate. I spun, my scythe a blur of black and red lightning. Every single tentacle that aimed for me was sliced, snapped, and vaporized in mid-strike. She screamed again, a sound somewhere between a roar and a sob. The currents themselves seemed to recoil from her terror. "Darling," I said, voice calm, almost casual. "I'm just getting started." Her body quivered violently. Regeneration began instantly, molten flesh knitting together before my eyes. Her mouth opened wide, releasing a deafening roar that warped the currents, shaking the ocean floor. But her desperation only made her movements sloppy, her fear of my weapon growing. I swung my scythe in a wide arc, red lightning crackling along its edge. A crimson energy blast erupted, slamming into her body. One massive hand was severed, a deep scar running across her 500-meter form. Her scream this time was raw, primal, and full of pain she couldn't nullify. I glanced at Seal. "Why is she screaming so much?" "She doesn't have pain nullification," Seal replied. "Every strike hits her fully. She's feeling everything." I smirked. That explained the intensity of her reaction. Almost satisfying. She roared again, regenerating limbs almost instantaneously. Thousands of tentacles lunged for me at once, trying to trap me in a living cage of flesh. I narrowed my eyes. Every single tentacle was cut, snapped, and vaporized, one by one, with surgical precision. The red lightning danced across each strike, slicing through the water itself in arcs of molten energy. The water boiled with the force of every blow. Shockwaves rippled outward from each cut, displacing currents for hundreds of meters. The pressure alone was enough to flatten the ocean floor in patches. She writhed violently, her massive body twisting, trying to avoid me, but I was faster. Every tentacle she threw became ash in the currents. I thought to myself, this is exactly what I wanted. To see the full potential of original blood against a worthy opponent. Her fear, her pain, her struggle, it all fueled my exhilaration. Her regeneration faltered under the relentless onslaught. I invoked Uriel, sealing each severed limb in barriers that prevented even the faintest chance of healing. Her massive body twitched, powerless, every attempt at regeneration failing spectacularly. Even as she tried to coil and strike with remaining tentacles, I cut each one with unerring precision, a dance of red lightning and black steel. Each swing made her shriek again, her voice echoing through the empty abyss, every note a testament to the agony she felt. The abyss trembled beneath us. Poisoned water churned violently, boiling and steaming with the concentrated energy of the battle. The battlefield had become a storm of destruction, a place where only I and she remained, the last living things in a void emptied of life. I exhaled slowly, savoring the moment. If you do not submit, I will erase you from existence. My golden eyes glowed brighter than ever, reflecting the fear and rage of the creature below. Even in the suffocating chaos, the ocean seemed to hold its breath. All that remained was me, original blood, and the jellyfish monster, once untouchable, now reduced to a thrashing, trapped, regenerating nightmare, powerless before my blade. The waters around us were heavy with blood and poison, a chaotic mixture of destruction left from our battle. Saphira's massive form floated silently, tendrils torn and shredded, her immense body trembling with exhaustion. Not a single sound escaped her mind. Her roar had faded, leaving only the pulsing of the abyss around us. I hovered above her, my scythe glowing faintly, crimson energy rippling through the water. Every strike I had made earlier had carved wounds across her body, and I now traced the edge of origin blood along her massive form once more. Each slash ignited a brief blaze underwater, currents boiling around the arcs of energy, and each time her cries of pain reverberated directly into my mind. Her mental voice trembled. Please, stop. A small smirk crept across my lips. I admit it, you are stronger than me. Please, stop this pain. For a brief moment, the abyss was silent, broken only by her uneven mental breathing. But as soon as I removed my protective barriers, her immense 500-meter body began knitting itself back together, limbs merging like molten flesh under immense pressure. The regeneration of her jellyfish cells was mesmerizing, alive, fluid, and unstoppable. I focused my thought, connecting directly to her consciousness. Do you accept me as your master? Her response was hesitant at first, unsure. Yes. I accept you, master. But how can I serve you? I am far too large. The land is impossible to reach. Even if I could, Demon Lord Guy Crimson would never allow it. I am too massive, too dangerous for other living beings. I smirked beneath the mask of calm. Don't worry about that. With a swift motion, I summoned a human body, a perfect vessel, stable and proportioned. I gestured toward her with the weight of authority. You have to possess this body, I commanded. Her mind flinched. Possess? What do you am? Before she could finish, the immense currents around her began to compress. Her 500-meter jellyfish body condensed, drawn inexorably into the human vessel. Water churned violently, streams of crimson energy spiraling, bioluminescent filaments coiling and dissolving into the core of the form. I watched, silently fascinated. Seal. How did Twilight even make her this massive? He didn't, Seal answered. Her size is natural. Deep-sea magic combined with her physiology. That's why she became so enormous. And Testarossa and Carrara, how did they defeat her? They used your null energy in a combined strike, Seal explained. They erased her completely. That was the only reason she fell at all. I nodded, eyes glued to the transformation. Her form condensed completely into the human body, currents twisting around her like living water. When the transformation ended, the vessel was no longer just a shell, it was her. Her hair now cascaded white with delicate pink tips, drifting like silk in the faint currents. Her skin shimmered like flawless snow, patterns reminiscent of jellyfish luminescence etched subtly along her arms and shoulders. Her eyes opened for the first time, luminous pink, deep and pure, framed by long lashes that fluttered like wings in the water. The elegance of her human form did nothing to diminish the latent power that radiated from her core. I leaned closer, letting the pull of her presence fill me. "Do you have a name? How should I call you?" Her melodic voice filled my mind. I have a name. It's Saphira." I smirked, the corners of my lips twitching in amusement. "Now you're my subordinate. That means I get to name you again." Her reply was a soft, shocked whisper. You're renaming me?" I nodded, firm. "Yes." And with that, Saphira's loyalty was cemented once more, her essence flowing completely into the human vessel. Immediately, a cocoon of intricate red and gold runes enveloped her. Magical streams wrapped around her body, tracing the faint jellyfish markings etched along her form. Her essence stabilized as the human body absorbed residual oceanic magic, blending her immense power into something contained yet infinitely potent. I turned to Seal. "What's her specialty?" "Poison," Seal replied. "Similar to Ultima, but with durability beyond most demon lords." Condensing her massive jellyfish form into a human body made her almost indestructible. "Her regeneration is now stronger than all except you, Veldanava, and Ivaraj. The only drawback? She doesn't yet have basic skills like pain nullification, talking, or listening. But she will gain them with evolution." I studied Saphira carefully. White hair now gleamed with pink-tipped luminescence. Snow-white skin reflected every stray light in the abyss. Her eyes were wide and expressive, yet carried the depth of her 500-meter form. She moved with grace, yet every subtle motion radiated untapped power. I couldn't help but whistle softly. "Damn, she's beautiful." Saphira lifted her hands, examining them as the transformation finalized. Bioluminescent patterns shimmered faintly along her arms, a reminder of her abyssal origins. Her hair floated like underwater silk, even here in open water. I approached carefully. "Saphira, now you belong to me." Her soft voice, carrying both awe and resolve, replied. "Yes, Master." I allowed a moment to appreciate it. Not only had she accepted me, but she had retained her power, her majesty, her essence, and now, fully stabilized, she was ready. In the crimson-lit abyss, Saphira floated before me, human yet still carrying the legacy of the deep ocean. A subordinate of unimaginable power, loyal, beautiful, and deadly. The ocean around us had finally gone quiet. No more shrieks, no more disturbances. Even the faint traces of magicules had scattered, probably because every monster in a wide radius had either died in our clash or fled in terror. "Before we go to land," I said calmly, floating with my arms crossed, "let's finish some work here." Saphira tilted her head, her long silver hair drifting gently in the currents. "What work, Master?" she asked in genuine curiosity, her voice soft, eyes searching mine for answers. I gave her a flat look. "First of all, don't call me Master. Call me Rimuru, just Rimuru." My tone left no room for argument. She blinked, almost flustered. "Yes, Lord Rimuru," I sighed. "Progress?" Not really, but at least she was trying. Without another word, I shot upward through the water, Saphira following close behind. We moved fast like arrows slicing through the currents. Hours passed in silence, the endless blue shifting into darker, more oppressive shades as we swam toward, well, my important work. "Target location has been confirmed." CL's voice rang in my mind, calm and absolute. "Perfect. Guess it's time to see if it's really here." The water around us grew heavier, charged with an ancient stillness. Saphira kept glancing at me as if to ask why we were even here. I couldn't help the small, almost mischievous smile tugging at my lips. Finally, we arrived. At first glance, the place looked like nothing more than a desolate stretch of seabed. But as the haze cleared, Saphira froze beside me. Her pink eyes widened. Stretching before us lay an impossible sight, a graveyard of ships. Colossal wrecks sprawled across the ocean floor, piled upon one another like broken toys. Warships from forgotten kingdoms, sleek vessels from distant continents, even massive imperial dreadnoughts, all swallowed by the abyss. Their sails were shredded, their masts snapped, their flags long devoured by the sea. Some had spears and arrows still sticking out of their hulls, others had shattered cannons, and a few were cracked clean in half. The ocean had claimed them all, turning this into a massive underwater tomb. Saphira's brows furrowed slightly, unease flashing across her face. "Why did you bring me here, Lord Rimuru?" I didn't answer. Instead, I descended slowly onto the deck of a half-intact galleon. The wood groaned and creaked under my feet, its planks darkened and warped from centuries of seawater, yet somehow still stubbornly clinging together. Moss and barnacles clung to the sides like parasites, while long seaweed draped across the broken masts like funeral cloths. Even in this deathly silence, the ship carried an aura of ancient pride, as though it had once sailed proudly across the surface before being dragged mercilessly into the depths. A twisted sort of majesty hung in the silence, like walking through the bones of a fallen giant. And then I smirked. "Let's see what secrets you've been hiding." Saphira followed behind me, her steps light but hesitant, as if afraid to disturb this graveyard. Together, we moved below deck, into the ship's belly. The water felt thicker here, almost pressing down with the weight of history. That's when we found it. Dozens upon dozens of chests stacked like offerings, untouched for centuries. Their locks had long corroded, but the pressure of the deep had kept looters away. I walked up to one, casually flicked my finger, and the lid creaked open. Gold, silver, jewelry, gems that glowed faintly even in the abyssal dark. "Oh!" I couldn't help the grin spreading on my face. Jackpot. I grabbed a crown, polished just enough to still shine, and plopped it on my head. The gold gleamed faintly even in the deep water, its surface encrusted with a few barnacles that flaked away under my touch. Embedded with cracked but still radiant gems, the crown had once clearly belonged to a king or perhaps even an emperor. Placing it atop my head, I tilted it slightly to one side and admired my reflection in the shimmering light of the jewels. "Damn, I look good," I muttered with mock grandeur, even giving a little pose as though I were on some invisible stage, turning slightly toward Saphira as if expecting applause. Her face remained blank. Her cold expression was unwavering, eyes sharp, lips pressed into a thin line, her regal composure unshaken as though she were judging me silently from her throne of dignity. "Right," I coughed. "Tough crowd." Digging further, I pulled out a delicate bracelet, silver with a sapphire set at its center. Without hesitation, I walked over to Saphira. The bracelet was beautifully crafted, its silver links woven together in intricate patterns that shimmered faintly in the dim light. The sapphire, perfectly cut, seemed to capture the glow of the ocean itself, glowing with a deep blue radiance that reminded me of her eyes. It wasn't just jewelry, it was the kind of piece that had probably been crafted for nobility, carrying with it a timeless elegance that had survived even centuries at the bottom of the sea. "Here," I said simply. She froze. "For me?" "Yes, for you." "Don't make it weird." Her hesitation was obvious, her hands fidgeted nervously, as if unsure whether to accept it. So, I just took her wrist, gently but firmly, and clasped the bracelet onto her hand. "It suits you," I said with a soft smile. Her cheeks flushed faintly, her calm, regal mask cracking just for a moment as she quickly turned her face away. By the time we were done, the entire graveyard was barren. Nothing remained but hollow shells of ships. "Not a bad haul," I said smugly, adjusting the crown still on my head. "Guess the ocean really is generous, if you're strong enough to take it." Saphira smiled faintly at my words, the bracelet glittering softly on her wrist. For the first time since I'd met her, her golden eyes shone, not with fear or fury, but with trust. After looting every ship in the ocean, I was, well, let's just say, filthy rich. A billionaire in just a couple of hours. Who knew the ocean was basically a giant floating treasure chest? Saphira trailed beside me, her expression softer than I'd ever seen. She wasn't holding any of the treasures, only wearing the single bracelet I'd given her earlier, its sapphire centerpiece glowing faintly in the sunlight of the deep. Her smile, however, was brighter than all the gold we'd just stolen. With satisfied faces, the two of us rose from the abyss, water slipping away from our forms as we swam upward. After what felt like forever, we finally broke through the surface, sunlight spilling across our skin as the horizon burned with the golden fire of a rising dawn. I stretched, inhaling deeply, and let out a long breath of relief. Finally, fresh air. But hey, Seal, how much time has passed? 2 days have passed since you first entered the depths, Master, Seal replied in her calm, absolute tone, like it wasn't something shocking at all. I froze, blinking. Wait, 2 days? What do you mean, 2 days? My stomach sank, realization dawning on me. Don't tell me, today's the day Shizu wakes up. Correct, Master. Because you were deep within the abyssal waters, time flowed differently. Down there, half a day is equal to 1 day outside. And now, yes, today is the day Shizu will wake up. My chest tightened a little at her words. So it's finally time, huh? Shizu. Without wasting another second, I spread my black wings wide. Water droplets scattered into the air like glittering shards of glass, reflecting the newborn sun. The sheer force of my wings flapping once sent ripples across the ocean surface as I shot into the sky. But then I glanced down and spotted Saphira, still floating on the water, tilting her head up at me with those soft sapphire eyes. That's when it hit me. Right, she's a sea creature. She can't exactly fly, can she? Does that mean I'm supposed to carry her? One, Master, Ciel's voice cut into my head sharply, laced with irritation. You do not need to carry her. Saphira is an angel hybrid, mixed with water spirit and ocean monster. She has wings of her own. I froze midair, blinking rapidly. Really? She has wings? Then why didn't she just use them? Because, clearly, you never bothered to ask. And she herself does not know yet. Her voice carried such a dangerous edge I almost flinched. I quickly raised my hands like I was surrendering. Oh, okay. I get it. Don't get angry. Note to self, never push Ciel when she's in that mood. Descending back down, I landed in front of Saphira and extended my hand to her. Saphira, you also have wings. Try to feel them. Deep inside you. Sense them, and spread them. Her sapphire eyes blinked in shock. I have wings? Her voice trembled in disbelief, but seeing my expression, she slowly nodded. If Lord Rimuru says so. Closing her eyes, Saphira stood perfectly still atop the water, her chest rising and falling as she focused inward. For a moment, the world seemed silent, save for the gentle rhythm of waves brushing against her feet. Then, faint sparks of light began to shimmer behind her back. Her lips parted slightly, a small gasp escaping. Oh, I can feel it. She raised her arms instinctively, and in a dazzling flash, wings erupted from her back. Long, graceful, pure white wings. They spread wide, each feather glowing with divine radiance, scattering droplets of light into the morning air like falling stars. Her eyes widened in awe as she stared at them. They're beautiful. I never knew I had these. With a hesitant flap, her body lifted from the water. Then another flap, stronger, steadier. Soon, she was rising higher, her laughter breaking free. I am flying. Lord Rimuru, I'm flying. Her voice was filled with pure happiness as she twirled in the air, spinning like a child discovering freedom for the first time. I couldn't help smiling warmly at her joy. But then she tilted her head, her white feathers glimmering in the light. But why don't we have the same wings? Yours are so dark and huge, while mine are pure and light. I glanced over my shoulder at my wings. Vast, obsidian black, and regal yet intimidating, radiating an overwhelming presence that could dominate the skies. I remembered when they had been much smaller, back when I had first become a demon lord. But now, they seemed to embody the weight of everything I had become. Everyone has different wings, I told her gently, and some don't have them at all. Slowly, I placed my hand on her head. Her cheeks turned crimson immediately, and she averted her gaze, flustered but quietly pleased. A soft chuckle escaped me. You'll understand in time, Saphira. But right now, we have more important things to do. I lifted my gaze to the horizon, Tempest calling to me from beyond the morning sky. We're heading to my country. With a single beat of my wings, I soared higher into the sky. Saphira flew beside me, her angelic feathers glowing like silver fire in the dawn light. Together, black and white wings cut through the wind, carrying us side by side toward Tempest. The wind howled around us, the world below reduced to streaks of green and silver rivers as we cut through the sky. 2 figures, 2 wingspans. On my right, Saphira glided with almost celestial grace. Her radiant white feathers shimmered like fragments of morning stars, scattering motes of light that danced in the currents behind her. She was serenity in motion, an ethereal contrast to me. My own obsidian wings cleaved through the air, sharp and unyielding, leaving behind shadows that seemed to swallow her glow. Light and darkness flying side by side. The sight would have been poetic if not for the absurdity waiting below. Tempest loomed beneath us, but what drew my attention wasn't the familiar skyline or my cozy home. It was the scene right in front of it. "Oh, you've got to be kidding me," I muttered, my eyes narrowing. 4 colossal dragons sprawled across the streets like rowdy squatters who had lost a bar fight. Their massive bodies cast oppressive shadows over the cobblestones, each one battered, wings bent at odd angles, and horns chipped as if someone had taken a hammer to them. Their once proud auras were dim, sputtering like broken lanterns. Yeah, they definitely got the Veldora Ethan Cherries treatment, I sighed, sweat dropping at the pathetic sight. The tremor dragon snorted, sending hot gusts of steam that made the ground quiver faintly. The fire dragon's mane flickered weakly, embers dying against the humiliation plastered on his face. The lightning dragon's arcs of power stuttered and fizzled, no longer roaring but whining. And the ice dragon's frost aura kept fracturing, melting, and reforming like an unstable heartbeat. Mighty rulers of destruction? At this point, they looked like oversized lizards who'd been mugged by a gang of delinquents. "They're sulking," I muttered under my breath. Beside me, Saphira tilted her head, curiosity sparking in her eyes at the fallen titans. We landed quietly, folding our wings, and stepped inside my home. The atmosphere inside was suspiciously casual. On the couch, sprawled like it was their rightful throne, were Veldora, Ethan, Lyra, and Cherries. Veldora had a manga stretched open across his hands, eyes sparkling like a 5-year-old in a candy store. Ethan leaned forward, his leg bouncing impatiently as he flipped the pages with him, hanging on to every panel like it was gospel. Lyra, with furrowed brows, peeked over Ethan's shoulder, tilting her head with an expression that screamed, "I don't get it, but I want to." And Cherries' Ifrit in human form, sat cross-legged, arms folded, face fixed in his usual stoic mask. But the quick flicker of his eyes toward the pages betrayed his interest. The moment I stepped in, Ethan, Lyra, and Cherries sprang up like well-trained subordinates. "Welcome back, Lord Rimuru," they said in unison, voices crisp. But almost immediately, their attention snapped to Saphira. Her aura was vast and untamed, like an endless sea threatening to drown everything it touched. Foreign, alive, and yet she stood quietly by my side. Their eyes widened, then softened in understanding. This was her, the sea monster I had gone to capture, now my companion. "Yes," I confirmed their unspoken question with a small smile. "This is Saphira, my new subordinate." Ethan, ever the friendly one, stepped forward first. "Nice to meet you, Saphira." His grin was open and genuine. Lyra followed, bowing slightly. "It's a pleasure. I look forward to working with you." Cherries unfolded his arms, giving a faint nod. "I am Fire Spirit Lord Cherries. I also work here. It's good to meet you." Saphira lowered her head with a grace that matched her wings, her long hair sliding down like a waterfall. Her voice was soft, but there was a trembling sincerity in it. "Yes, it's nice to meet you all. Please, take care of me. I am new here." Her humility made Ethan grin wider, Lyra relax, and even Cherries gave a faint hum of approval. And then there was Veldora. The man didn't even look up. Still flipping pages, eyes glued to his manga like the fate of the universe depended on the next panel. My eye twitched. "Oi, Veldora." "Nothing." "Fine." Smack. My hand came down on his head like divine judgment. "Gia." "Why, brother?" Veldora howled, clutching his skull and curling up like I'd betrayed him at the cellular level. "At least introduce yourself properly," I scolded. He sniffled pathetically but then sprang to his feet, puffing out his chest like a wrestler about to perform. Tears evaporated, instantly replaced by a smug grin. "Hear me well," he bellowed, stomping forward and spreading his arms. "I am the Great Storm Dragon, Rimuru Tempest. Brother of your master and unrivaled in might. Nice to meet you, Saphira." The sheer volume rattled the windows. Saphira stiffened as if struck by lightning. Her eyes went wide, her lips parted, and her hands trembled. You're truly Veldora? Veldanava's younger brother? A true dragon?" Her words cracked under the weight of disbelief. Veldora blinked. Then, with a booming laugh, slapped his chest. "Ha ha 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 ha, so you know my brother? Good. Yes, I am indeed his younger sibling. I am a true dragon. Saphira's knees nearly gave way, her entire body trembling. Awe and terror warred across her face as her gaze, slowly, shakily, turned toward me. Lord Rimuru, if you are Veldora's brother, does that mean, are you also a true dragon? The room froze. Silence wrapped around us. Ethan, Lyra, and Cherries all turned their eyes on me, gauging my response even though they already knew. I offered her a small, calm smile. I am not completely a true dragon. But yes, you can say I am one. I am the Void Dragon, Rimuru Tempest. The words slammed into her like a tidal wave. Saphira's breath caught, her vision swam, and her heart pounded violently against her ribs. Knees buckling, she nearly collapsed under the crushing realization. To her, true dragons were gods. Untouchable existences above even the strongest of monsters. And now, her new master wasn't just connected to them. He was one. Ethan, however, only crossed his arms with practiced calm. Veldora had already explained the truth to him during their missions together. True dragons were gods. Greater dragons? Just oversized lizards with bad attitudes. He drilled that into Lyra too, and she simply gave a small nod as if reconfirming the lesson. Saphira, though, had no such preparation. To her, this was a nightmare disguised as truth. Her breaths quickened, her hands trembling uncontrollably. And just before she could crumble entirely, Lyra quietly stepped forward. She placed a gentle hand on Saphira's arm, her touch warm and steady. Her violet eyes softened. "It's all right," she whispered, her voice a soothing melody amidst the storm. "You'll get used to it." We did. Saphira blinked at her, caught between fear and comfort. Her trembling slowed, if only slightly, as she clung to Lyra's reassurance like a lifeline. Rimuru leaned back against the wall, golden eyes flicking toward Saphira. She sat there nervously, hands clasped in her lap, her posture stiff as though any sudden move from Veldora might crush her. Honestly, she doesn't have to be this afraid of him, Rimuru thought, suppressing a sigh. Power-wise, she's not that far behind. If I think about it, she's at least equal to Veldora back when he was stuck in infinite prison. Maybe even strong enough to rival Daggrol if she took things seriously. So why act like he's some unstoppable monster? His thoughts drifted, studying her profile with a mix of concern and curiosity. But before he could get too deep, Veldora's booming voice cut through his musings. "Oi, Rimuru!" The dragon turned his massive frame toward him, squinting with a sharp grin. "What happened to your hair? It's untied?" Blinking, Rimuru instinctively reached up, brushing his fingers through his long black hair. Strands slipped forward across his shoulder, a little wild compared to his usual neat ponytail. "Ah," he exhaled. It was because of Saphira. His voice dipped, almost reluctant, before he waved it off. "But let's not talk about it." Inside, he muttered darkly, "No way am I telling him I fought her. If I do, he'll definitely demand a match too. And the last thing I need right now is another brawl with this muscle-brained dragon." Instead of suspicion, Veldora's face brightened like a kid handed a new toy. His eyes gleamed with unrestrained delight. "Foo ha ha ha, even better. With this new style, you look far more heroic. With that long, flowing look, any girl would fall for you instantly." Rimuru's eyebrow twitched. He dragged a hand down his face, groaning. "I told you not to talk about it." "Drop it, Veldora." But Veldora only crossed his arms, clearly pleased with himself for making the observation. Saphira ducked her head even lower, clearly trying to avoid the dragon's attention, while Ethan and Cherries exchanged silent glances, lips twitching in amusement but wisely keeping their mouths shut. Refusing to let the nonsense drag out, Rimuru exhaled and started walking toward Shizu's room. His steps slowed as he reached the door. She was still sleeping, but today was supposed to be the day she finally woke up. His hand reached out toward the handle, just a moment away from twisting it open, when someone stepped in front of him. Lyra? She stood there, blocking the doorway with a calm but firm look. Her red eyes locked on his, unreadable. "Why are you blocking my path?" Rimuru asked, tilting his head, clearly confused. "Shizu's supposed to wake up today. I just want to check on her condition. Why stop me from going inside?" Lyra's gaze flickered, narrowing slightly. "So today is the day she will wake up?" "Yes," Rimuru replied simply, his tone softening a little. Her expression hardened. "Then you definitely can't go inside." "Not right now. There are reasons. Quote. Huh? Rimuru frowned. His mind instantly turned to the worst-case scenarios. What the hell does that mean? He opened his mouth to protest, but before he could, a familiar, calm voice echoed in his mind. Master, I also advise against entering. Seal. Rimuru's inner voice wavered, caught off guard. If you go in now, there's a high chance Shizu will start resenting you. I suggest you refrain. You too? Rimuru muttered inwardly, frustration bubbling up. Why are both of you stopping me? Lyra's expression didn't falter. She lifted her hands and, with surprising firmness, began pushing him back from the door. Rimuru let himself be moved, though his eyes remained sharp with irritation. Once she had created some distance, Lyra's voice rose so everyone in the hall could hear, Veldora, Ethan, Cherries, and Rimuru alike. From now until Miss Shizu wakes up, no one is allowed to stay here. All of you, outside. Go train or do something useful. Only the girls can remain here. Her gaze shifted towards Saphira, who tensed before slowly nodding in agreement. Rimuru's eyebrow twitched violently. Wait, hold on. Why are you throwing me out of my own house? Did something happen to her? Lyra's lips tightened, her patience thinning. That's a reason you don't need to know. If you all stay here, Shizu might get the wrong idea. She might think you're all perverts loitering outside her room. So out. Perverts? Rimuru muttered in disbelief, his jaw dropping slightly. She's correct, Master, Seal interjected coolly. You so out, in particular, are the biggest risk. If you linger, Shizu may misunderstand and start disliking you. Wait, what? The biggest pervert? How am I the pervert here? Rimuru shouted internally, his mental voice indignant. Because you are. Seal replied bluntly, leaving no room for debate. Back in reality, Rimuru pinched the bridge of his nose, groaning. Meanwhile, Veldora stomped a foot against the floor, arms crossed over his chest, looking every bit like a sulking child denied candy. Yeah, and what are we supposed to do outside? You can't just throw us out without an explanation. Ethan shifted uncomfortably, clearly torn between siding with Rimuru and Lyra. In the end, he glanced at his girlfriend and then quickly looked away, deciding silence was the smarter choice. Cherries, similarly, pursed his lips and kept quiet, unwilling to clash with Lyra's authority. Lyra folded her arms, glaring at all of them like an older sister scolding troublesome children. You heard me. Just go outside. Train. Fight. Do anything other than stand here and bother Miss Shizu. Now move. Before Rimuru could get another word in, Lyra grabbed the edge of the door, swung it open wide, and all but shoved them out. The sound of the door slamming shut echoed through the air, the latch clicking firmly into place. Rimuru, Veldora, Ethan, and Cherries stood outside, blinking in a mix of shock and indignation. Inside the house, only Lyra and Saphira remained, the air now heavy with quiet determination. The heavy wooden frame slammed shut behind them, sealing the house with only Saphira and Lyra inside. Rimuru stood frozen for a moment, staring at his own door as if it had betrayed him. His golden eyes narrowed, and a long sigh escaped his lips. Unbelievable. Kicked out of my own house, he muttered. Master, Lyra reminds me of Shuna. Both of them share the same authority over you all, after all. Seal chimed in with her usual playful tone. Rimuru twitched. Not helping, Seal. Veldora threw his arms behind his head, already grinning ear to ear. Foo ha ha ha. Well, I suppose it's training time. Though, Rimuru, you really do look cooler with your hair like this. Shut up, Veldora. Rimuru snapped, cutting him off before his irritation grew worse. Ethan and Cherries exchanged a glance, both shrugging helplessly. Clearly, neither of them had the guts to go against Lyra's authority. Left with no choice, Rimuru rubbed his temple and started walking, grumbling under his breath. Ethan cleared his throat. Lord Rimuru, what do we do now? Rimuru's gaze shifted toward the dragons lingering outside his house. A faint grin tugged at his lips. Let's cook the ogres and the dragons, he said. Ethan blinked. Cherries tilted her head. Veldora's eyes gleamed like a child's at a festival. Oh, a splendid idea. Inside, behind the closed doors, Lyra and Saphira exchanged a knowing look. The real reason for keeping Rimuru out was about to unfold.